Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're completely demystifying one of the absolute most advanced pieces of automotive engineering that you probably use every single day, the dual clutch transmission. Seriously, whether you're behind the wheel of a high-end sports car or just a super efficient daily hatchback, there's a really solid chance this technological marvel is sitting right under your hood, quietly pulling off some serious mechanical magic. Let's kick things off with a totally mind-bending number, 100. Specifically, 100 milliseconds. That is exactly how fast this transmission can shift gears. We're talking literally faster than you can blink. It's this instant, totally seamless transfer of power that completely transforms the feel of a car. You basically get that direct, visceral punch of a manual gearbox, but with zero effort, just all the convenience of a traditional automatic. So here's our agenda for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The dual clutch revolution. 2. The 100 millisecond mechanical ballet. 3. Wet versus dry clutches. 4. A century in the making. And finally, 5. Rules for the road. Section 1. The dual clutch revolution. We'll start with exactly why the car world so desperately needed a revolution in shifting gears. I mean, for decades, drivers were just stuck compromising, right? Drive a manual, and you've got all that physical effort, plus that annoying, distinct interruption of power every single time you push the clutch in. Drive a traditional automatic, and you totally lose that direct mechanical connection because of the squishy, fluid-based torque converter, which, by the way, eats up efficiency. So here's the real game changer. A DCT completely eliminates that clumsy power loss of the manual and the inefficiency of the automatic. It gives you this continuous, unbroken forward thrust, lightning-fast shifts, and honestly, up to 10% better fuel economy. It really is the best of both worlds. Moving on to Section 2. The 100 millisecond mechanical ballet. Let's actually open up the gearbox and take a look at the absolute mechanical ballet making these instant shifts happen. At its core, a DCT is basically a highly intelligent computer-controlled manual transmission, but instead of one clutch that you're mashing with your left foot, it has two. Think of it like a brilliant division of labor. One clutch is the boss of all your odd-numbered gears, so first, third, fifth, and the second clutch handles all the evens, second, fourth, and sixth. They operate totally independently, but they are perfectly, flawlessly in sync. Now, check out the nested design here. Input shaft 1 actually sits completely inside a hollow input shaft 2, which means they can spin independently. This coaxial setup right here, this is the secret sauce. By nesting one shaft literally inside the other, engineers figured out how to cram two entire gearboxes into a space barely bigger than your standard transmission. It is absolutely brilliant. And because of this nested architecture, the transmission acts like it can literally predict the future. Here's how it works. While you're accelerating hard in first gear on the first clutch, the computer brain is already looking ahead. It physically lines up second gear on that outer shaft, so it's just sitting there, fully pre-selected and waiting. When it is time to shift, bam! The first clutch opens, the second one closes, at the exact same millisecond. You can actually visualize the power flow beautifully here. You've got power flowing right through clutch 1 for first gear, while the pathway for second gear is already totally locked in on clutch 2, just waiting for its turn. There's zero pause, zero shift shock. It's just a continuous, surging wave of momentum that pulls you seamlessly right through the gears. All right, Section 3. Wet versus dry clutches. So now that we understand the mechanics, we've got to talk about the two distinct flavors of this tech. Because no, not all DCTs are created equal. It really boils down to two things: cooling and torque capacity. Dry clutches are super simple and incredibly efficient, which makes them perfect for smaller, compact commuter cars, like a 1.5-liter engine. They're lightweight and have zero hydraulic drag. But if you try to dump massive torque through them, those air-cooled plates are going to overheat instantly. That is exactly where the heavy-duty, oil-cooled wet DCT steps into the ring. When you look inside a complex wet clutch, it's a completely different beast. The clutch plates are literally bathed in transmission fluid. That fluid dissipates immense amounts of heat, which is absolutely crucial for heavy loads and aggressive sports car driving. The catch? Yeah, there's a trade-off. That fluid friction creates a bit of drag, which can actually cost you a 5 to 10% loss in efficiency compared to the simpler dry setup. But engineers are literally always pushing the envelope. That constant evolution brings us to modern masterpieces like the Tremec TR90 88-speed transaxle. This thing optimizes proprietary wet friction materials to cool the system only exactly when it absolutely has to. By cutting down those hydraulic losses with advanced materials, it totally bridges the gap, giving you extreme thermal capacity without throwing all that precious efficiency out the window. Section 4.
A century in the making.
Okay, so where did this lightning-fast, highly computerized tech actually come from? The history here is going to blow your mind, because the core concept is remarkably old. We're talking 1939. A French engineer named Adolphe Congrès actually proposed the whole dual-clutch idea right before World War II. But the mechanical logic was just way, way ahead of the processing power they had back then. The world literally had to wait decades for computers and materials to catch up. Finally, Porsche perfected it in the 1980s on the racetrack with their legendary PDK system. And then, in 2003, everyday drivers finally got their hands on it with the VW Golf R32 and the Audi TT 3.2. It's so cool to see Adolphe Congrès's original 1939 hydromechanical blueprint right alongside a modern computer-controlled Audi gearbox. You can clearly trace the lineage, right? The nested shafts, the dual pathways. It was this brilliant architectural vision that just had to wait patiently for the dawn of the microchip to actually work in the real world. Section 5, Rules for the Road. Okay, now that we know exactly how this technology works and where it came from, we need to talk about you, the driver. Because underneath the floorboards, this is still physically a manual transmission, and you have to treat it with respect. A DCT is not a traditional slushbox automatic. Creeping forward in stop-and-go traffic, faking a race car launch, doing that will physically slip and burn the clutches, which leads to catastrophic wear. You might even feel a bit of low-speed jerkiness sometimes. That's completely normal. It's just the computer trying to engage a physical clutch plate. But if you constantly inch forward in a drive-through, you're just endlessly slipping that first gear clutch. And say you're braking hard, the computer's getting a lower gear ready. If you suddenly mash the paddle for an upshift right then, you're going to confuse the whole system and get a really clumsy, slow shift. Basically, work with the computer, not against it. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, please remember this one rule. Your brake pedal is your transmission's absolute best friend on a steep hill. A traditional automatic uses fluid to hold you in place on an incline. But if you try to hold a DCT on a hill using just the gas pedal, it tries to hold the car by physically rubbing those clutch plates together. That creates massive, damaging heat. So, press the brake pedal firmly, tell the computer to fully disengage those clutches, and save yourself a massive repair bill. So, here's a fascinating thought to leave you with. As the entire automotive world pivots heavily towards single-speed electric vehicles, is the dual-clutch transmission the final, most brilliant peak of internal combustion engineering? Next time you're driving and you feel that flawless 100-millisecond shift, just take a second to appreciate it. You are driving the ultimate and maybe the final masterpiece of the mechanical gearbox. It literally took a century to perfect. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and next time you hit the road, I really hope you feel the magic happening under your right foot.